Hi. Finally, I've managed to get round to watching more films for 2020. And given the current state of affairs, I'm restricted to what's available on downloads or on streaming services. So one of the first that I watched was Horse Girl. It's a psychological drama thriller directed by Jeff Baena and written by Baena and his leading lady, Alison Brie, who I'm sure you recognise from Mad Men or Community. It's the story of a young woman who is very quiet, very shy, works as a sales assistant in a craft shop, which she seems to enjoy a great deal, has a much more outgoing flatmate, who has a boyfriend, but she prefers to stay home, do crafts, watch her favourite TV show, Purgatory, which is an obvious knockoff of Supernatural, the paranormal adventure detective series, and also visit the horse that she used to ride when she was a young girl, where she is tolerated by the owners of the stables. However, she has something of a dark background. Her mother has committed suicide within the last year. Her father is long out of the picture, so she has a distant stepfather with whom she has a friendly rather than close relationship. And she also has what she feels is an important connection with her grandmother, to whom she bears an uncanny resemblance. But her grandmother also suffered from severe mental health problems. And when Sarah starts to feel her grip on reality starting to slacken, um, particularly with regard to the idea that she might be a clone or that there is something involving alien abductions, then she starts to fall down a rabbit hole of what she believes to be a terrifying global conspiracy, but which is to us, the outside observer, clearly the onset of severe paranoid schizophrenia. It's an interesting film. It's quite cleverly constructed and very engaging, and Brie is fantastic. And I did particularly like the way that we see a person change from being a perfectly normal, respectable member of society at whom you wouldn't glance twice to being someone who is being forcibly restrained in a mental health facility, raving about conspiracies involving clones, time travel, alien abduction, as I said. Her belief that swathing herself in peach coloured clothing can protect her, um, strings of hallucinations with reality and fantasy overlapping. Um, Whereas she sees this as coming to some sort of greater awareness, it's very obvious to the audience that we are seeing a very plain, no nonsense depiction of a person collapsing into severe mental illness. The problem I have with the film, however, is that towards the end we get several indications that it's not mental illness, it's actually something greater. She goes out into the forest towards the end of the film believing that she's going to be abducted by aliens, and apparently she is. Um, and it's left open as to whether or not which is true and which one is false, which one is fantasy. And I feel that that's to the film's detriment because prior to that, we had been watching the story of a young woman falling into severe mental illness and showing how someone can fall through the cracks, someone who is quiet and lonely, doesn't have a kind of support structure to help them. Whereas if she actually is abducted by aliens at the end of the story, then in fact, it's more about how society is imposing narratives of mental illness onto people who see the truth of reality, which makes me rather uncomfortable because that's exactly what paranoics and truthers believe to be the case, and it just feeds into their anti-reality bias. So I feel that's a fairly major narrative misstep. As I said, Alison Brie is an extremely fine actress, and the film's script apparently was simply a detailed outline, leaving the dialogue to be filled in later during shooting. So that which worked extremely well. The dialogue is for the most part very natural and believable. There are some fine supporting performances. Molly Shannon as a co-worker, Paul Reiser as her stepfather, and even a cameo by no less than Robin Tunney as the star of Purgatory itself, which is only ever seen on TV. But despite all that, and despite some very captivating visuals, the jumpsuit made from peach taffeta that she makes, leaving only her eyes exposed, I thought was a quite startling visual image. But ultimately, it falls rather badly at the last fence, if you'll excuse the cliche.